Once a year, something unusual happens. Schedules dissolve, messages go unanswered, streets grow quieter, living rooms fill. At a specific hour on a specific day, tens of millions of people orient their bodies and their attention toward the same glowing rectangle. Different cities, different lives, different reasons. And yet the movement is synchronized. It looks ordinary because it happens every year, but if you step back, it's strange. An entire society pauses, not because it has to, but because it wants to. Or at least, because it feels like it wants to. Nothing forces this coordination. No alarm goes off. No authority mandates participation. And still, it happens. Calendars bend around it. Conversations anticipate it. Even people who claim indifference often find themselves present, seated, watching. Not always because they care about what's happening on the screen, but because everyone else is. Humans have always been responsive to shared moments. Long before screens, before broadcasts, before stadiums, there were fires, ceremonies, seasons, collective pauses that told people when to gather, when to wait, when to watch. Shared rituals reduce uncertainty. When many people do the same thing at the same time, the world feels more predictable, safer, more coherent. You don't need to understand the ritual for it to work. You just need to be inside it. The Super Bowl operates on this ancient logic. The game is not the core mechanism. It's the excuse, the structure. What matters is the synchronization. Millions of nervous systems aligning around the same rhythm, the same build-up, the same moments of tension and release. This alignment produces something subtle but powerful, a sense of belonging without effort. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to decide. You're simply part of what's happening. We often think of attention as something personal, as if it lives entirely inside the individual, as if we choose where it goes moment by moment. But attention is highly sensitive to environment. It follows patterns. It responds to coordination. When everyone is looking in the same direction, it becomes easier to look there too. Not because you're weak, but because the human brain evolved to track where collective focus is moving. This is why distractions lose strength during moments of mass attention. Notifications still arrive, messages still exist, but they feel distant, less urgent. Attention prefers alignment over chaos. It settles when the environment agrees on what matters. Fragmentation creates anxiety. Synchronization creates calm, even when the content itself is intense. When attention is fully captured, something else happens. Emotional defenses soften. The constant internal scanning relaxes. You stop checking. You stop managing. Presence increases, not because you trained it, but because the system around you supports it. In these moments, people become more open, more receptive, more emotionally available. Not in an obvious way, in a quiet one. This openness is not usually noticed by the person experiencing it. It feels natural, like being absorbed in a story, like forgetting time. But psychologically, it's a rare state. Most modern environments fragment attention instead of holding it. They pull you in multiple directions at once. They keep you partially engaged everywhere and fully present nowhere. The Super Bowl does the opposite. It concentrates attention. It gathers it. It holds it steady. This is why the commercials matter, though not for the reasons people usually cite. Their power doesn't come from cleverness alone, or production budgets, or cultural commentary. It comes from timing. They arrive when defenses are low, when attention is stable, when emotion is already activated and shared. In this state, messages don't need to fight for space. They land, they attach, not as ideas, but as feelings. This isn't selling in the traditional sense, it's anchoring. A brand doesn't need to convince you of anything in that moment. It only needs to be present while you're open. The association forms quietly. Later, you may not remember the message clearly, but the feeling lingers. This is how influence works when it doesn't announce itself. Another thing happens during these hours that's easy to miss. Individual identity loosens. People temporarily step out of themselves. Not fully, just enough. Preferences soften. Personas relax. Someone who doesn't follow sports still watches. Someone who doesn't care still participates. Not because they changed, but because belonging is more powerful than preference. Belonging doesn't require agreement. It requires presence. Being part of something larger than yourself satisfies a deep psychological need, one that rarely gets addressed directly in modern life. We talk about productivity, optimization, self-improvement. But underneath, many people are simply looking for moments where they don't have to hold themselves together alone. For a few hours, the Super Bowl offers that. A shared storyline, a shared timeline, a shared emotional arc. You don't have to ask what's happening, you already know. You don't have to explain why you're there, no explanation is needed. This suspension of individuality feels subtle, but it's deeply regulating. When it ends, something else becomes noticeable. The contrast. Attention fractures again. Screens multiply. Feeds resume. Everyone returns to their separate loops. The collective silence breaks into noise, and without anyone saying it, the question forms quietly in the background. Why did that feel different? Not better, just different. More solid, more anchored, more real. The answer isn't the event itself, it's the structure around it, the alignment, the permission to focus on one thing without apology. Most days don't offer that. Most systems benefit from keeping attention moving, restless, unresolved. Synchronization is rare because it's inefficient for many modern processes. Fragmentation is easier to maintain. But once you've felt what coordinated attention does to the nervous system, it's hard to unfeel it. You start noticing how often your focus is being split, how rarely it's allowed to settle, how many systems quietly shape where your eyes go, where your thoughts drift, how you spend your emotional energy. The Super Bowl makes these systems visible, if only for a moment. Not because it's exceptional, but because it's concentrated. It shows what happens when millions of people enter the same psychological space at the same time. And it raises a quieter question. If a single event can do this so reliably, what else is guiding attention every day, without the spectacle, without the ceremony, without you noticing at all? There's no answer offered here, just the observation. Most systems don't announce themselves. They don't ask for permission. They simply arrange the environment and let behavior follow. And the more normal they feel, the more powerful they tend to be.